Hola!
Hola!
Hola.
Hola!
Hola todos.
Hola.
Hola.
Hola de la Vuelta.
Hola.
Hola.
Welcome back to the GCN Racing News Show. This week the Vuelta kicks off with two different leaders in 2 days of racing. We've got the resumption of the Deutschland Tour, plus the Grand Prix Plouay, the Bretagne Classic, and a glimpse into the future with the Tour de l'Avenir and the Junior Tour of Wales. The final Grand Tour of the season, the Tour of Spain, kicked off on Saturday with an 8-kilometre individual time trial on the street of Malaga. Pre-race favourite Rohan Dennis blasted round the course to take the victory by a clear 6 seconds from Michal Kwiatkowski of Team Sky. Dylan van Baarle had been in the hot seat for most of the evening, but was eventually bettered by Nelson Oliveira, Kwiatkowski, European time trial champion Victor Campenaerts, and finally Dennis in his Australian champion skinsuit. Not so true to form the following day was Richie Porte. He started the race as the bookmakers' favourite, but lost close to a minute to his teammate on the opening day, and then 13 minutes on day 2. And with that, of course, all chances of the overall classification. Now, Porte clearly isn't in the form that many had expected before the race started, and looks to be there simply to prepare for the World Championships, and maybe to try and take a stage win in the final week. With Porte on stage 2 was Rohan Dennis. They were amongst a number of riders to suffer in the heat. Sagan was dropped. Lars Bohm visited a roadside fan's camper van toilet, finishing inside the time limit but just 4 seconds after pebble dashing that. Whilst Nibali, Adam Yates, Dan Martin and Ilnur Zakarin all lost significant chunks of time. How hot and hard was that first stage? Here's Ben King to tell you.
About halfway through the race, I looked over at Ryan Gibbons. Noticed all the sweat on all the other riders. Asked if I looked like that. He said, yeah. After the race, I was 4.9 kilos lighter than before the race. Did what I could for the team. Saw a lot of big names out there suffering.
4.9 kilograms is about 11 pounds, and that is a hell of a lot of fluid to lose on a single stage of a race. Not suffering up front though was Alejandro Valverde. The 38-year-old timed his sprint to perfection to get the better of Michal Kwiatkowski, although the consistency of being runner-up for 2 days in succession did reward the Polish champion with the leader's red jersey, which he will wear on stage 3 today. Don't forget you can catch highlights and analysis of all the stages over on our Facebook page, so make sure you check them out if you haven't been doing so already. The Deutschland Deine Tour, or the Tour of Germany, made a return last week after a 10-year gap. The 4-day event produced some really exciting racing and saw the return to competition of Tour de France winner Geraint Thomas. Day 1 finished in a big bunch sprint. Jose Alvaro Hodge of Quick Step Floors timing his sprint to perfection and getting the better of a very disappointed German champion, Pascal Ackermann. The following 3 days though saw some particularly aggressive racing. Max Schachmann got the better of Matej Mohoric on day 2. However, it was the Slovenian champion who reigned supreme the following day in front of a very disappointed Nils Pollitt, who in turn had his redemption on the 4th and final day. He took his first ever pro victory there in a sprint from a reduced group. That was enough to see him go up to 2nd place in the overall GC, just in front of Schachmann, but the overall winner was Mohoric. He added the German title to the one that he won in the Binkbank Tour just a week ago. Another impressive ride from the 23-year-old who is having by far his best season to date, and the icing on the cake for him is the fact that he's now GCN's Rider of the Week. Over to France now for the Grand Prix Plouay, or the Bretagne Classic as they're calling the men's race now. A notoriously tough one-day classic which struck fear into the heart of Ryan Mullen. The former Irish champion tweeted this prior to the race and was clearly written with a sense of fear. And post-race, it was quite easy to see why. Alex Dowsett had a normalised power of 338 watts for 6 hours and 20 minutes, and that was to finish 42nd on the day, over a minute behind the winner, Oliver Naesen. The former Belgian champion was the best of a strong 3-man group and outsprinted Michael Velgren and Tim Wellens to the line. The women's race marked the end of a dominant period for Marianne Vos. She was bettered on the day by 27-year-old Amy Peters of Bulls Dulmans. Peters proved fastest of a 15-woman group that contested the finale to take her 2nd individual World Tour success of the year. For Vos, 2nd place not only marked the first defeat for her in quite some time, but also the end of her road season. She'll now take a short break before embarking on a full cyclocross season that will start on September the 23rd in Waterloo over in the USA. On to the Tour de l'Avenir now, which literally translates into the Tour of the Future. This mini Tour de France is generally an indication of future success, with recent winners including the likes of Nairo Quintana, Egan Bernal, Bauke Mollema and Esteban Chavez. And so, the name you'll all no doubt be hearing a lot more of in the future is Tadej Pogačar. A name I really need some help in pronouncing, so please let me know in the comments section just down below. The Slovenian didn't win a stage, but consistency in the final few days in the mountains saw him take the overall win. Pogačar has already finished 4th in his home tour this year behind fellow countryman Primož Roglic, and for the next 2 years he will be riding with Team UAE Emirates. Pre-race favourite Ivan Ramiro Sosa was thwarted by the team time trial in which the Colombian team lost over a minute and a half, but he did manage to win stage 7. That despite the fact that Brandon McNulty raised his arms in celebration. Basically, a premature celebration, something I'm sure he won't be repeating in the near future. Next up, a very quick look at the Junior Tour of Wales. This was, in fact, my first ever road race. Previous winners, though, include Dan Martin, Roger Hammond, Johan van Summeren, Eddie Dunbar and Matt Stevens. Twice, believe it or not. And so, like the Tour de l'Avenir, it's a pretty good sign of future success. As we record this, there is still one stage remaining, but currently in the race lead is first-year junior Leo Hayter, 2 seconds in front of junior cyclocross world champion Ben Tullett. Hayter won the traditional opening stage up the tumble climb, and it's on that climb that the race will conclude later on today. And finally, the Scaal Cells in Belgium wound up in a big bunch sprint. That was won by Timothy Dupont in what was a 1-2 for Wanty-Groupe Gobert on the day. Actually, before we finish, there was quite a conclusive result in last week's poll on the GCN Racing News Show. 94% of you think that Matteo Trentin's European Champions kit is hot. In fact, he's my pick for the Vuelta a España stage today, so we'll see how he gets on there. That is all though for this week, and next week we will be back with the action from the Vuelta, plus the Bulls Ladies Tour, the Brussels Cycling Classic, and the first day of the Tour of Britain. That race sees both Chris Froome and Geraint Thomas taking part for Team Sky. I will see you then. In the meantime though, meet Ed Pratt. He's a man who's just finished riding around the globe on a unicycle. So I met him as he completed his journey just a couple of weeks ago, and you can find that video just down here.